Bevelyn Ukah.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I am really excited for folks to hear about who you are and what keeps you busy in this world. Can you share a little bit about what you're up to these days?
Yeah, I can share. I'm so glad you didn't ask me to share who I am because that is forever changing. um, but yeah, so what I've been up to these days, I'm just working. I work for the Center for Environmental Farming Systems and do work around youth organizing around the state and some nationally around food justice and food systems. And that is very beautiful work in that everything that we do comes from a racial equity lens. And so we're in a very deep process of understanding how race impacts food systems and people's outcomes, people's ability to have not only a sense of belonging, but full-blown health and wellness. So that's just what I've been doing for a really long, my whole career, my whole big girl career, I call it. But I'm also in a strong place of exploration and trying a lot of new things and dealing with my own internalized perfectionism. And I think that, working on things that are very uncomfortable and trying new things will definitely do that. So one example is I started taking some courses, some carpentry courses, and it's at they have been at Wild Abundance in right outside of Asheville and Weaverville. And they are classes that are all women and taught by women to learn carpentry. And so I took a basic carpentry course that was intensive. And then I went back a week later and took an advanced carpentry course. And before I went there, I was telling everybody that the only thing I knew how to do was put a nail on the wall. And I got there and I realized I didn't even know how to do that correctly. So the teachers were so fabulous in really breaking down the details that seem minute around tools and how to use them and safety, while also, really challenging us. So, I didn't understand when I was growing up in math class why we're doing fractions. And I did not know why we're doing geometry. And now I understand how to apply these different skills that I literally haven't used those skills until this past experience in the woods, in the wilderness, with a bunch of beautiful women supporting each other, doing math problems, and applying it directly to building sheds. And like we built a shed in my basic carpentry course. I built this beautiful bench. It was a lot of like physical labor, and it was also very challenging spiritually and emotionally. So that's just one example of me throwing myself into the abyss that is the abyss of the unknown, I'll call it. And all of that is to prepare for building a tiny house in September. So I'll pause there. There's so many more things that I'm doing that's like, what am I doing?
Okay.
But I'll pause there because it seems like you wanted to say something.
Well, I'm so excited about that. When you told me about those courses that you were taking, I got really excited thinking, oh gosh, I should go take those too. Because my dad was great at those things. He could do everything, and I didn't need to know how to do it because he would just do it. And even if I said that, hey, there's something at my house that needs to be done, and I'd start asking him questions, and if it was a big thing, he'd be like, oh, I'll just come do it. And that happened once because they lived 10 hours away. So this one time that he came, what happened was he threw his back out. Like doing some stuff. And so he was literally sitting in a chair while I was doing it, like directing me on what to do. And I
Mhm,
never knew this about my dad until this particular experience, but he was great at doing it and he wanted to just do it because he didn't know how to teach it.
mhm, mhm,
And so it's the first time, first and only time my dad ever got into like an argument, like a real argument about something. And because he was like yelling at me, and I'm like, I've never done this before. How am I supposed to know how to do it?
mhm,
And last week, I was up in Ohio, and my brother and sister and I were cleaning out. My dad passed away in 2019, so we were cleaning out all of his tools out of the garage. It was the first time we were able to all get together in the same place since COVID to do this. My mom had wanted us to do it for a while, and so I brought home all of these tools. Right, like I have an abundance now of tools that I really feel sad that I don't know how to use.
mhm. Yes.
So you're inspiring me to go dig in, and I'm curious, how did perfectionism play out for you in those classes?
Mm. It's important to take deep breaths
Yeah.
because it was a lot. Um, Thank you so much for sharing that story. And I hope that the clearing out experience was a big part of your healing and um, yeah, just clearing out and also this opportunity to be able to learn sounds amazing. And like tools are a lot more they're like really straightforward, but they're a lot more complicated than one might think. There are so many different um like for example, a speed square. I don't know if you've heard of a speed square, but
I've
it's
heard of
a
it, but
triangular thing. I still need to learn how to teach too about tools, but this triangular. Um, it can be metal or plastic, but basically it has a 90-degree angle and a 45-degree angle, and there are all these different indicators on the tool that you can use for so many different things. And so to be able to listen to someone patiently describe and um, give examples and show, like have visual examples happening in front of you amongst other people who are some people were, on the same page and knew what these things were. And some people were as clueless as I was, you know, to be able to learn in such a diverse space was really, 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 it was magnificent. So my own internalized perfectionism, um, and I knew this was going to come out because I've been dealing with this since I was a kid. And I could talk more about that, but I knew that I was going into a situation where I wasn't going to be good at something already. And I have, since I was younger, been pretty good at things right at start. And I got really spoiled from not only from the external validation, but just from that feeling of trying something new and shocking myself like, "Ooh, this is good." Or yeah, and it's also there's the perfectionism is deeply connected to just competitiveness. And I'm not the type of person that gets like quote unquote violently competitive. I'm not the type of person to necessarily um have a temper tantrum if I don't win, or something like that. But there has always been something within me that feels that my value is connected to whether or not I'm able to accomplish something and also to show up better than somebody. Not and so with this carpentry situation, um, yeah, that I knew that was going to be coming up a lot, and it was scary, and also really important that I push myself for, my to deal with this thing that is toxic. I think that perfectionism is a toxic thing. It eats at you very slowly. And it's not I don't think it's something that resources itself. And so yeah, I'll pause there.
I'm curious. I think perfectionism often keeps us out of action. So I'm wondering how difficult was it for you to recognize, because you're recognizing in what you just said, I'm going to go into this situation where I know I'm not going to be good from the start. How were you able to do that without letting the fear of doing that keep you out of action?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably a glutton for torture. uh, but in order to feed being accomplished, a quote unquote accomplished person, there has to be some balance with that of putting oneself in like uncomfortable situations. And I've been really, really blessed and to be able to have a lot of situations where I was out of my comfort zone as a kid and learn certain skills to find comfort in that discomfort, and have really made a commitment to doing that in my life, to figure out how to find comfort in that paradoxical situation or in that contradiction. um so I want, I told you about the situation in another conversation about me studying abroad and being abroad as a kid, and people talking around you and not understanding anything that anyone's saying. It's just like little things like people giggling. It's like there's an internal conversation, like what are they giggling about? And there's some might be a battle of, are they laughing about me? Is it I remember one time I was speaking in German to my friend Jessica, and she, every time I spoke, she laughed, she giggled, she'd be like, you know? And I remember asking her, why do you always laugh when I talk? And she was like, the way you speak is really sweet. She said "süß." She called it "süß," like it's really sweet and it was, or really cute. And in that moment, I realized that I have to put myself in a situation where it's okay to be embarrassed. It's okay to for people to have their natural reactions, and also to like feel those feelings and to be present with those feelings, because they're necessary to get to um that next level of being and bettering oneself. But also I was able to ask her in German why she was laughing at me, or if she was laughing at me, and when just a month before I wouldn't have been able to construct that sentence. And so I have had a lot of different opportunities such as that one, and also like basic stuff, more basic things, like not going all the way to another country, where I've been able to um live in that contradiction. And another thing that I would say is like faith is really important. It's so important. Like I'm my mom did a really, really beautiful job of teaching us the gravity um of faith, and the like really strong impact of faith. And she did it through example, and she did it by being very loyal and committed to what she was loyal and committed to, and doing what she said she was going to do, following through. um and kind of like whenever we had these challenging situations where we were in the midst of failure, or um in the midst of a hard situation, she would like love us, but she wouldn't let us stay there very long. Like she might give us a scripture. My mom's a fixer. She's a Leo, so she's a fixed sign. She needs to, we got to keep it moving. And so she did a lot of work to encourage us to find our own tools, whether it's internal or resources outside, to build that faith system. That she used to always say, everything is temporary, or God won't ever give you anything that you can't handle, things like that, like those statements. And it's true. It's true. Like I have found that I have been in situations where it's been really hard and I have failed or I haven't done very well. And then better things come later when I just have to let that thing go, and then better things come later. So, and the last thing I'll say is I trick myself a lot. to put myself in certain situations, I think I have to trick my mind to do it, to get over the fear. And one of the ways that I do that is by understanding my priority, like understanding the things that I need to do to feel like myself,
Mm.
and then leveraging those things to put myself in uncomfortable situations. For example, I love my friends and I love my chosen family. I love my family. And so with this tiny house situation, I made some agreements with a few of my friends, and also have a sponsor to support me in this whole process. And I can't let the people I love down. So I've made agreements with them, and so I'm gonna show the hell up, and I'm gonna show out, and I'm going to make sure that people understand that I've been supported in this, and it's not something that I just did. It's something that I was encouraged to do by the people that love me most. So there's this representation thing that does matter to me a lot, and so I stack that against any fear that I had going in.
Hmm. Feeling emotional. This happens during podcasts because so often I feel like the people that I get the opportunity to interview are the people that I'm supposed to be talking to. Like, it's the message. It sometimes what happens is like the exact message that I need to hear is the one that comes across.
Mm,
You just did that for me in a couple
mm,
different ways. The reminder of faith.
mm.
It's so important. And I'm curious what helps you when you're in the valley. Like, we don't really need faith when we're not in the valley, right? But when we're in the valley, what helps you keep the faith?
I would say when I'm in the valley, I think that I want to say that I'm really blessed. I think everyone has an opportunity to be blessed in the way that I'm naming. I feel like we're all really connected. And just like what you just said, you just noticed that you've noticed over time that when you do podcasts, you're hearing exactly what you need to hear. So one of the things I'm always looking for in the valley, especially in the valley, is some confirmation, signs, opening my eyes and looking for that synchronicity. And uh, sometimes a spark that I need to, it's really important for me to be really present. And I know this is cliche, but it's really, really, really important to have gratitude,
Hmm.
to have gratitude. Like everybody has something to be grateful for. And if a person can't think of anything to be grateful for, tell them to call me. Like, y'all call me. I can give you my number, or I'll give you my email. I won't give you my number. But and to just be present and practice having a practice of gratitude, or having multiple practices. So one example is I just started a gratitude box this morning because I am experiencing a heavy amount of abundance right now. My friend Jody Lassiter, she calls it a zucchini issue. Like when you plant zucchini, take care of it, and now you got all the zucchini and you don't got enough dishes to. So I have a zucchini issue right now where there's so much abundance coming in. I've been praying for this abundance. It's coming in, it's flowing all the way in. And I'm a little overwhelmed. So I have these workshops that I'm working on where it's really important or I have a contract that I'm working on where it's really important for me to be present with the folks that I'm working with in a specific way. A lot of the people that I'm working with are experiencing extreme pain, and uh I have an issue with my perfectionism. Also have an issue with wanting to fix things like my mom. And these the causes of this pain I can't fix. And it's not my responsibility to fix it. And also it's not possible for me to do this thing that in some ways I put in my head that I was hired to do. And
Mm.
so that took me a little bit in the valley. knowing that I'm also doing all these different things and didn't have enough emotional capacity to carry it all. And so yesterday I got up, I meditated, and then I fell asleep during that meditation, and then I meditated again. And all of a sudden, all these different problems that were like, I was crying because I was overwhelmed. All these different problems that I felt like I couldn't fix after those meditation sessions, the answers just start popping in my head, you know?
Yes.
And then I needed to get to action because I needed to apply it real quick to keep things moving. But yeah, looking for signs, starting with gratitude, and then keeping those eyes open for signs that you're on the right path. And being in the valley is part of the path.
Yes.
If everything was just Gucci or awesome all the time, then I do not want to know where this world will be. We're already not that in that great of a position right now, environmentally and in our spirits. And we're not supposed to be good all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm a Pisces. I'm just gonna tell the world I'm a Pisces sun sign. And I learned at a really young age that that there are, it's like if everything was dark all the time, then we wouldn't know. It's like that would be our reality. But if there was one like speck, just like the smallest speck of light, it would completely change. It would be revolutionary for everyone's perspective. Or if everything was light all the time, and then all of a sudden there's this speck or a black hole or whatever, like, but it could be so small, it would change everything. So yeah, the reason why I brought up me being a Pisces, because yeah, I used to wallow in that sadness.
Well,
I was a little joyful, happy child, but when I was emo, I was all up in the emo. And I made sure everything was themed emo. I used to listen to, my music was gonna be emo, my outfit was gonna be emo. You know what I'm saying? I was committed. So I think that's another, I think that's another tool to just allow oneself to like wallow. It's okay.
yeah.
Because that's also temporary, you know?
The more I learn about you, the more I adore you. And
Thank you.
I
I
can
adore you
relate.
too.
I can relate to that so much. Is Pisces a water sign?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm a Scorpio.
Oh,
And
hey, Scorpio.
hey,
Them deep dark
I
waters.
know, let's go swim in the deep end.
Right.
So, okay, all of this kind of relates to another place that you're in your current journey,
Hmm.
creativity.
Hmm.
So, I am really curious about for you, what your intersection of faith and creativity is, and what the intersection of creativity and perfectionism is for you.
Mm. You are so great at question asking. um, so that's a really, really profound question, in the sense that without having like practicing these faith practices, my art practice wouldn't have ever come about. So I started an art practice right at the beginning of the pandemic. Um, before, so so one of the things that I will share is that briefly, I don't really want to go that deeply into it, but I was in a physically, emotionally, financially abusive relationship. Um, and I've always been very, yeah, I surf on joy waves. I surf on it. And I've always felt like I have reserves of joy. And in that relationship, I was I was being sucked of my joy. And I was giving it away. I was also giving it away. So I needed to um figure out how to, first of all, get out of the situation, and then I needed to figure out how to replenish all that I had lost and given away, um and also forgive myself for having been in that situation, which I'm pretty sure that's none of these things that I'm naming are just like I am accomplished in this thing. It's an ongoing process, but one of the things that I started doing after I did a protective order was I started going to therapy. The Women's Justice Center, or it's a family justice center in downtown Greensboro. They are a very great resource for any listeners, for people in a situation like myself, and they have other services. But one of the services that they offered, it was therapy for us, and it was for free, and it was paid for by grant money that they worked really hard for. I went in there, I didn't feel any shame, or they were really, really amazing at supporting me in my transition. And so when I started going to therapy, I would treat myself to something at Deep Roots after, which is a food co-op. And whenever I would go in there, there was this woman that I had met before named Karen.
And Karen's been on the podcast before, and so we'll link
Oh,
to the past episode.
oh, awesome. Yeah, so Karen, Archia, is amazing. And we had met briefly a few times. She had a coffee shop, and I used to go and have meetings in there. And one day I just recognized her. I was like, "What? Hey!" And she was like, "Hey, I'm doing this practice where if you want to come and do some artwork with me, you can do some artwork." So I sat down with her that day, and she had all this art supplies, and it was good art supply. It wasn't like, no offense to Crayola, but I'm an artist now, so I'm like, no, Crayola's not. She had really expensive, like good quality art supplies. She introduced me to a lot of different tools, just like with this whole carpentry course. And she gave me a few prompts and was just like, you can sit and do art with me quietly, or we can talk. And I just sat and did art with her. And I was probably there for a whole hour and was just so amazed by how much better I felt afterwards. And she was like, yeah, I'm here every, I think she said 3 times a week. And from this time to this time. And she just sat there and supported people in doing an art practice, like building an art practice or just being. And that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being in the valley and looking out for signs. So I decided anytime, every Tuesday I went to my therapy. So every Tuesday I would go and I would do this art practice with her. And sometimes I was quiet, sometimes I engaged, sometimes I saw people that I knew there, and we did art together. And I'm pretty sure I only went 3 times, but because the pandemic hit. And one of those times she was telling me about, where I can get art supplies and things like that. So that was really helpful, that I'll talk about later. So during the pandemic hit, I don't have to go into how traumatic that was for a lot of people. But in that time, in the beginning, like I think it hit in March. And so in March, I went to Jerry's, where she told me to get some art supplies. I got a bunch of stuff, and then I just started experimenting. And I liked what I was making. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I stopped going to therapy for a while because of the pandemic. And so that became my therapy. That became my escape. That was also very it was like it wasn't escapism, like the Pisces escapism. It wasn't like, it wasn't like getting drunk and trying not to deal with issues. It was like an escape into my issues, an escape into my ancestry, an escape into yeah, so that paradox place, like, how are you going to escape into something, like into yourself? um and uh and I think that, and so what you're talking about in terms of faith and spirituality, that practice helped me to come back to a lot of spiritual practices that I had when I was younger, or when my faith system was a lot stronger. Um, which basically it was a practice. It wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about being it wasn't about anyone else. It was about my own relationship with myself, and being able to, like, watching a show, watching this piece of paper or this like piece of whatever evolve, and it's all coming from my hand or from my mind or from my spirit. And like, there's no way that my ancestors and that God was not involved in that, because what came out, I'm not trying to brag because
No,
it's not about that. What
it's
came out was like, what? Oh my goodness, honey, this is cute, or this is nice, or um and so I was able to give myself that validation, and I was able to um and it was just for me. So I would say that's another perfect example of, like, just have some faith.
and
And then a Karen will come along, you know?
I mean, you had even an exhibit of your work.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I have some work on that's showing right now. I'm not even, don't ask, we can talk about it later. I can't remember the name of the library right now. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I'm a part of the Black Women's Art Collective. Let me tell you about the story. Okay, so I'm gonna speed it up. So I at the end of when people started coming back out during the pandemic, people were wearing masks and stuff like that. I was at Jerry's. This was a year later after the pandemic started. I was at Jerry's and I saw Karen. And I was like, Karen, I even like think that I forgot her name at first because we didn't know each other like that, you know? And I was like, Karen, hey, I just want to say thank you so much. And I told her, I was like, I've been doing art and I had just sold my first piece the week before. And I was like, I sold a piece and and right now I'm looking for some place to do art. Like, I want a studio space. I was going through something at that point too, where I needed to like have studio space outside of my house. And she was like, well, I'm starting this collective called the Black Women's Art Collective. And also I have this fellowship and you can come in and work with me in my studio anytime you want. And, and. And then we both followed up and we're like kindred. I've been doing this collective with her for uh maybe a year now, or maybe half a year now. So I got to meet these other beautiful Black women that are also self-taught artists, and we have a gallery. We have exhibition that's on right now, and we have, I think, 3 other exhibitions that are coming up before the end of the year. That might be a lie, but there are some other exhibitions that are coming up. It might not be 3 before the end of the year. And also I've sold many commissions. Like, that first piece that I sold was just started a whole process. I'm working on 2 commissions now. And I think I've sold 4 others at this point. And I just started, but I feel I'm like I'm creating these pieces for really beautiful people that are doing beautiful work. And it's one of the most powerful things to see someone's spirit, like my spirit and their spirit combined, come out through a piece, and to see it in their house, you know?
Yes.
And to get paid for it too. It's
Yes.
like, wait a minute. But yeah, this, I would pay that amount too. I would pay this good amount for this beautiful piece. So I'm like proud of myself. I'm really, really proud of myself. And I'm really proud of my work. But again, there are so many elements that it's not just about me. It's me in relationship with my spirit guides. It's me in relationship with God. It's me in relationship with my ancestors. It's me in relationship with my pain, you know? And as I've really been able to be in relationship with that pain and sit in it, a Karen pops up, and Alisha pops up. Um, it's just like these opportunities that come through people
Oh,
pop up, you know?
yeah.
And then not only that, it's just like there's like continued validation from experience, not from people around, okay, a Jody pops up, here, you should take this tiny house class and I'm going to support you in doing it. I'm like, I don't have no money. I'm trying to save money to buy land, collective land with some people. I'm like, I don't have no extra money. I need to put it towards this land. And she's like, I will, we'll figure it out, you know, because she wants that for me.
Mhm.
And so I have to deal with my own internalized, you know, my imposter syndrome. Like, why is it that I deserve this type of grace? Or why is it that I deserve this type of generosity? But anyways, I'm gonna pause there. Whew.
'Cause you are worthy.
Right. We are worthy.
We are
We are
worthy. And
worthy.
everyone listening, you are worthy, right? And
Yes.
like as you're walking your dog or doing your dishes or cleaning your house or going for a run, anybody who's listening, they're worthy too, just because we're alive and we're breathing and we're human.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to forget that we get so trapped under fear and we get so trapped under perfectionism and so trapped under like sometimes in the valley, right?
Yeah.
And we forget that just because we're in the valley, it doesn't mean we're not worthy.
Right. As a matter of fact, because we're in the valley, that might mean that we're worthy. like
Yes. Yeah.
like that puts so much to our worth because we have the ability to be in the valley.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. I've
Hmm.
had chills throughout this whole interview. And I know that those who are listening are going to feel this energy and the power of everything you've had to say today. What else do you want to share before we wrap up?
Oh my gosh. I was telling you before, I can just go on. Um
I know we might need a part two because I've loved talking with you so much.
yeah, I'm not ready to be done. um I don't think that there's anything else that I would like to any other. Hold on. I just need to take a moment to be present. Hold on. Um, I would just like to reiterate the importance of having a practice and have that practice be daily if possible, um, or multiple practices. But before I get up every morning and I do meditation or tapping or dance by myself. You know, it's like, but I make sure there's always some incense. um, and it has changed my ability to be strong and like present throughout the day.
Mm.
So please, 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 please just make time. It's really important that we make time for ourselves to just be present.
Yes.
And I think that's the last thing I would like to share.
Well, I have one more question for you, and this
Oh,
might
okay.
tie into what you just said, but how do you live a life of abundance?
Oh my gosh. By harvesting my zucchini, making zucchini bread and making zucchini spaghetti. Um, how do I practice a life of abundance? I practice a life of abundance by practicing gratitude
Mm.
and also, yeah, by paying attention to the signs and being grateful for them.
Well, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.